I'm State Representative Ted Nesbit. The number one priority of the General Assembly is to create and pass a state budget. Now that we're in the month of June, the process has already begun with a vote on the governor's budget proposal. Joining me today to discuss that process and update us on this year's budget is Majority Chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, Representative Bill Adolph. Welcome.
Ted, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming. We're into the budget process, and you are the chairperson of the Appropriations Committee. And let's just start at the beginning. What exactly is an Appropriations Chairman, and what kind of does that entail?
Okay. Well, first of all, Appropriations Chairman, unlike the other chairs of standing committee, is an elected position. Okay. I've been privileged to serve as the House Republican Appropriations Chair. This is my 5th year. Okay, and so it's an elected position. It's also, as far as numbers are concerned, in sheer members, it's the largest committee in the state capitol. And our charge is to pass a budget, balanced budget, on time by June 30th. And it starts with the governor addressing both the House and the Senate in a joint session. Governor Wolf did that in early March, and he puts his proposal out there, and almost immediately, Representative, we hold 3 weeks worth of hearings. No different than what your local supervisors do, your local school boards do, local businessmen do. They bring in the department heads, we bring in the cabinet members, we bring in university presidents. We bring in the state police, the Department of Education Secretary, the Department of DHS Secretary, and we go through their budget. They're proposing this budget, and their job is to show us why they need X amount of dollars. That goes on for 3 weeks. Okay? The Senate does the same thing. We gather all this information, and then we see what we can afford based upon each passing month's revenue. And the good news is that we will be on projections. Okay, our revenue, as projected in last year's balanced budget, the revenue's coming in. And actually, if the governor didn't do an executive action regarding some of the fracking, okay, natural gas. He prohibited some of the fracking that would have taken place in some state forest. We would have had about another $100 million. The Philadelphia casino license did not happen, and that we fell short about $95 million there. And in Lawrence County, there's another casino which we'd have had about $100 million in a license. So those 3 items, we would have been about half a $500 million over our projections. But that didn't take place. With the cost of living going up, cost to carry, state pensions are through the roof. We're going to be about $1 billion short in revenue for 15-16's budget.
Okay, and so you've looked at those, and actually some of the numbers are better than we expected, but then others weren't as good as expected.
Absolutely.
So the Appropriation Committee kind of looks at all that and puts forth what your recommendations would be for the next year's budget.
That's correct, and we negotiate. We negotiate with our colleagues in the House Democrats, with the Senate Republicans, with the Senate Democrats, but most of all with the administration, Governor Wolf and his budget secretary. And those negotiations have been going on, and quite frankly, Representative, it's been a slow process.
Right. Well, and there's some difficult challenges that, as I've been explaining to some of my constituents that have asked, hardly any of these solutions will be simple, and most are going to cause some pain.
Yes.
Yes. Especially when you look at pensions. And I understand that, and studying the pensions, I mean, that's a huge problem that's going to have to be solved for future years' budgets as well.
There's no question about it. Our pension contributions, is about $1.3 billion for the public school employees, and right around $1 billion for state employees. So together, it's a $2.3 billion line item on a $30 billion budget. So you can see it takes up a lot of money. And that is going to increase by anywhere between $300 to $400 million in the next couple of years, each year. So we need to continue to pay what is owed, okay? Because quite frankly, that was part of the problem. Whether it was school districts or state government, we didn't always pay what we should have. No fault of the employees, but we will continue to pay what is owed. And however, it's not sustainable. So some reforms are necessary. And I think you're going to see that take place. The Senate just passed a bill. I understand that state government committee in the House is holding hearings as we speak. And they're going to review that and see what we like about it, what we don't like about it. But these changes that are made are going to help us 20 years down the road.
Right.
Okay? So future legislatures, future governors will not have to deal with this type of problem.
And of all the proposals that I've been studying, I haven't seen any that affect anybody that's currently retired. I know I've had some of my own teachers that I've had concerned that we're going to take away part of their pension, but none of the proposals that I've seen even touches anybody that's currently retired. Is that your understanding as well?
As far as the House bills are concerned, you're absolutely correct. However, the Senate just sent us over a bill that does deal with current employees as well.
Current employees, though.
Current employees, not retirees.
Right.
Not retirees. Current employees.
Right.
As well as new employees.
Okay, and I know in the House we've passed a liquor bill that hopefully will be part of the negotiations with the other entities. And we also passed a property tax reform that I did not support in its current form, but I understand the need for property tax. So those are all going to enter into these negotiations between the House, the Senate, and the governor.
Yeah. Well, I'm on the same page as you, Ted. I did not vote for that either. I understand the property tax dilemma. I certainly am opposed to Governor Wolf's proposal. I'm opposed to the distribution of it. I think the bill that passed the House was an improvement. However, it's just my budgetary mentality that it's hard to take over funding for 500 school districts when we don't control their spending. And adding that type of line item to our state budget, I wasn't about to put that on the taxpayers of Pennsylvania just yet.
And that was one of my concerns too, is I believe that property tax needs some reform, and I hear from seniors that are on a fixed income and their property tax bills keep going up and they're worried they're going to lose their homes. The problem I have is that if we pass something in the current form didn't have any mechanism to make sure that the local school boards didn't raise the taxes. And in fact, that's what I see happening. They're capped as to how much they can raise them, but still almost every one of them has. So they're really, what we would end up doing is probably passing the income tax increase, a sales tax increase, and ultimately a property tax increase if the school districts then raise those taxes.
I think that's probably what would happen. And it's something that's going to be addressed. Obviously, we have an outstanding property tax and rent rebate program paid out of our lottery. It's something that I think we should take a look at, see if we can upgrade, increase the income eligibility as far as that. There's a concentration on our senior population, and maybe I think the maximum right now is like $650 rebate. I'd like to see that increased, and I'd like to see the amount of the income eligibility be increased. I think that would be a big help for our senior population.
And June 30th is the end of the fiscal year, which is when our goal is to have a budget done. But from a procedural standpoint, that means that somebody in the House actually introduces a bill that would be already negotiated. Or could you kind of explain that? Because everybody hears that, but I don't think they really understand how it gets done from a procedural point.
Just 2 weeks ago, I introduced a budget bill, and it's a vehicle to have it in place. And I made sure that everyone in the General Assembly understood that. I made sure that the administration understood that. We have House rules. It takes us 2 weeks to get a budget bill through the House. So I wanted to get a vehicle in place so when we get the agreed to budget, we can then just simply amend what the vehicle is, and then it passes within 24 hours. So that's what we did. That's what we did in the last 2 weeks, and on Monday, to our surprise, every member in the House had an opportunity to amend it. The House Democratic chair decided to amend the vehicle language with the governor's language of his budget. However, it wasn't filed on time. Missed it by about 6 days, and then he also did not have any revenue to pay for it. So we gave him an opportunity to balance the governor's spending with the revenue part of it, and to our amaze, it was defeated with no yes votes.
I was shocked. I was shocked by that whole undertaking. As somebody that's just a freshman and watched kind of the play back and forth, it was fascinating to see the procedural moves, but also I was fascinated that it weren't more proponents of the spending bill that we keep hearing about that everybody's in favor of. There are some priorities in there that I think we all agree on.
Absolutely.
The question is the best way to actually pay for those, and it was surprising at the way that happened. But I think that probably will help us now with the actual negotiations. Everybody can kind of get down to the nitty-gritty of getting the real work done now that some of the show's over, right?
And that's what we've been asking for. And when we sit down with the governor and when we were talking to the budget secretary, there was obviously certain sections of that budget that we support, okay? But there's also sections of the budget that the taxpayers of Pennsylvania cannot afford. And we were not allowed to specifically go into that section and pull that out. The governor insisted, as did his cabinet, that we had to take the whole thing or nothing. Well, we put up the whole package the other day, and no one accepted it.
Right, which now I think means we get down to the real negotiations.
So, and I'll tell you what, we had a good meeting with the governor yesterday, and hopefully this negotiations will be fruitful over the next couple of weeks.
Right, because that is ultimately the job of the House of Representatives, is to get a budget and hopefully get it done by the end of June. So.
Yeah, Representative, the only constitutional challenge that we have every year is getting the budget done on time. And in the last 4 years, we've been able to do it, and I hope there's no difference this year. But it's going to be a challenge.
I look forward to the challenge. This is my first budget, and I'm looking forward to see how the process plays out.
Looking forward to working with you.
It looks like that's all the time we have for today's program. If you need any assistance with any state matter, feel free to contact me at my local office or through my website. That information will be shown here in just a minute. And thanks for watching, and please join me next time.